I'll be talking to you today about how there is no subject you do in school that is useless. There is no subject you do in school that is not important at one point in time or the other to your life. It's not uncommon to find students thinking, oh, I don't like this subject or I don't like this teacher. And because of that, the subject is useless to me. I'm not going to need it. At times you think you don't need a subject, probably because of the course you think you want to go and study in higher institution. But the truth about this is the fact that most times these subjects were put together by professionals who critically considered the content of the subject before turning it into a course of study in school. I'll be sharing with you from a personal experience why I believe that you should not take any subject with levity. You should not handle any subject with like a daisical attitude, like you're not serious about it, thinking that subject is useless to your life, thinking that maybe because you don't like that teacher, the subject, I'm not going to take it. I don't like the teacher. I don't like the way he teaches. The truth is that your teachers have their lives and they are living their lives, but they are doing what they think they need to do or what they were hired to do in the best way they know how to do it. What you come out with from that subject at the end of the day is going to be yours to keep. Your result in that subject, your learning in that subject, your knowledge you acquired in that subject, whatsoever it is you are able to take away from that lesson, from that class, from that subject, at the end of the day is going to be yours to keep. And your teacher will have little or no benefit in what you eventually come out with. The subject you're learning in school at the end of the day would form a body of knowledge for you in the future. And I'm saying this because beyond going to study certain courses in higher institution, every subject you're doing in school, some of them may not be relevant to what you are going to study, but it does not mean that they are going to be useless to your life. So my point is, every subject you're doing in school is going to be useful to your life. And I'm going to tell you from my own side a personal story that made me to decide to start telling students there is no subject in school that is useless for your life. Even if you think you don't need it now, even if you think it's not really part of the requirement for the course that you want to study in the university. It was a little funny to me because when we were in primary school till we got to the senior primary school, like primary 5 and primary 6, it was just numbers and numbers and numbers in mathematics. And suddenly we started seeing letters appear, and I couldn't comprehend that kind of a thing. I mean, they will write X and Y, and we started seeing A's and B's. To be honest, I didn't understand, where did A come from? Where did B come from? And I was baffled. I was destabilized. I couldn't comprehend. Of course, you don't want to appear like a fool to your classmates, so everybody keeps quiet, and maybe other students understand. But I did not understand where the X and the Y and the B came from. And that started the build-up to what I could call my dislike for mathematics. And I had a problem coping with that subject in secondary school, To an extent, at times I feel tempted to say that the teachers were also not helpful because they expected everyone to know. And maybe I was also a slow learner or whatsoever challenge I probably had as a learner, And it was very difficult for me. Year 7, year 8, year 9, it was difficult. I wasn't considered a brilliant child in school, but I was not a dunce, That was not because I wasn't intelligent. That was because I didn't see any big deal. Things just came to me naturally. You listen in class, you read a little, and then you get a C or a D, and you're okay as long as you didn't get an F. So throughout my stay in secondary school, the only subject where I got F was in mathematics. And it got to a level that it was the norm for me to get F in mathematics, And even my parents knew that even if other subjects were like D's and C's, math is likely going to be an F. There was no way you could go about that for me. All right. And I started living with it as if it's the norm. I didn't like the subject. Besides, at an earlier stage, I had thought I was going to be an artist. But by the time I got into senior class, it became more obvious. It became more obvious that I felt maybe this thing is not for me. And to be honest, at a stage I was thinking maybe it's a family challenge because all of us in my house were not doing well in mathematics. So I thought, it's a family problem, so it's not my problem. But my parents were not really excited. They were not really happy with that. But I didn't have any way out, and I was consistently failing that subject, and I did not care. because I thought, oh, I wanted to be an artist. I'm going into the university to study fine art, so I wouldn't need it. And I continued with that mentality, oh, I wouldn't need it. And then I continued with scoring F, failing mathematics consistently. When I got into SS2, which is year 11, I got a C in mathematics. When my dad saw that result, he said, this teacher gave you this one. You didn't score this C. The teacher gave this to you. And to be honest, I think the teacher actually gave me that grade. I don't know, it was one lovely teacher, math teacher like that. I don't want to mention his name, but I still remember him. So I'm not too sure, but it looks like he actually gave me. But one other thing I also remember with him is he came into class. Probably I even passed it. Who knows? Because I remember he would come into class and he would his approach, what I need to say is his approach was relaxing. His approach was not like fire is going to fall from heaven if you don't do well in this thing. He was so relaxed with us. Maybe it wasn't good enough for some students, but it was very good for me. Till today, I still remember the topic he taught us. He was with us for probably a term, less than a term, I guess. And he taught us probability. I still remember that very well. And the guy would dramatize, he would demonstrate, he would crack joke with us with everything. And probably that made me to fall in love with him, fall in love with his lessons, fall in love with the subject in the way I never did before. And I got a C at the end of the day. But this is the story. So I didn't do well in mathematics. By the time I finished my O-level, mathematics was the only subject where I got F. I didn't do very well overall, but that was the only F I had in school. And then I had to go back to secondary school to retake my WAEC, we call it in my country, in West Africa, West African Examination Council. That is the exam we used to do. Then that's our O-levels. And I went to this other school and just to retake my papers, to sit my papers again, to sit for my O-levels again. And the story was the same. I wasn't doing well in mathematics. I had to even get someone who finished secondary school years before me, and he was good with mathematics. He gave me some training, but the thing did not just work out. Till today, I don't know why. But I thought, there's no need. The math is useless for me. I mean, what career will I go to in my life? And they'll be talking to me about the X, the Y, A plus 1 is 2. 2 plus B something. I mean, don't mind my description. So that is what happened. I finished secondary school. I got admission to study fine art in the university. I never needed the credit in mathematics. As of that time, I didn't need the credit in mathematics. I finished my first degree and I was okay. Then my second degree, I wanted to do a master's in educational administration. So I had two universities in mind. One was the one where I finished from, the other one was not too far away. Both universities are in my region, okay, and within my catchment area, as it were. So the first one I wanted to go to, they said I needed a credit in mathematics. So I went to the one where I finished from. I picked up the course, I did my master's program. I didn't need a credit in mathematics and I was okay with it. So I batched my master's. I got my master's in educational administration. And I thought I was going to continue, and that was where the problem started for me. I wanted to continue, probably to PhD. And every school I went to, every university I went to, I met with this obstacle. You need a credit in mathematics to study for a PhD in educational administration. I tried several times for years, and I was always meeting that obstacle. You need a credit in mathematics or else you will not be able to come in. Remember, I told you I never did well in mathematics. I got F throughout, and in my O-levels I got F too. So that was a little bit of a challenge for me, And then I thought, okay, I'm gifted in counseling. A lot of people have told me, oh, Paul, you're a good counselor, this. And I thought, yes, I think I'd like to pursue a career in guidance counseling. Eventually, I'm a careers counselor today, but that's another story, So I was going to go for a master's degree again in guidance and counseling. Lo and behold, every university I tried, they all requested that I present a credit, an O-level credit in mathematics. I mean, that was over a decade after I left secondary school. Yes, one would say, oh, you can still go and do it. But look at the time I had thought to myself that this subject was going to be useless for me. But over a decade after, that thing I despised got me despised, okay? And this is a lesson I want you to learn. What you despise today can get you despised tomorrow. That subject you ignore today can get you ignored tomorrow. That subject you think is useless today can render you useless tomorrow, okay? So I need you to please learn from these. Don't make the same mistake that I made. Even if you are able to recuperate, even if you are eventually able to get yourself well aligned and you are able to do a course that is useful for you, it is very important that at this stage of your life in secondary school, you don't despise any of the subjects you need to do. And let me round off with this. At times, some students will say, oh, I don't like that teacher, and that's why I'm not doing well in the subject. Listen, the teachers have their lives to live. You also have your life to live. So you need to be mindful of something. Even if you like a teacher, the teacher is not going to be probably the one that will teach you from start to finish in your school. Do you get what I mean? From the start of your education to the end of your education, it's not going to be the teacher. So forget about the likeness. I'm not saying it is not important to like a teacher. Of course, you will do well in the subject of a teacher you like. But forget about the likeness for a teacher, okay? Before you now say, oh, I want to do well in that subject. The truth is, either you like a teacher or not, your life is your life. And if you do well in any subject, it's going to be about you at the end of the day. It's going to be about your career. It's going to be about your happiness. It's going to be about your future at the end of the day. I believe in my mind that you've learned some things today that can help you. Please don't despise any subject. Please don't hate any subject. Please, no subject is useless to your life. Thank you so much for listening to me today. My name is Iroye. See you next time.